I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 8 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty quick, and got married right after we graduated. For the most part, I thought we had a solid relationship. She had her moments of being bitchy, especially when she was stressed at work, but I figured that was normal. She was always a little manipulative, but I never thought she was capable of cheating on me, until I started noticing weird shit happening the last few months. It started with small things. Her phone going missing for hours, her suddenly being busy at weird times, and her sometimes dodging my questions about where she was or who she was with. Nothing concrete, just enough to make me uneasy. She'd brush it off, call me paranoid, or accuse me of overthinking. Honestly, I was starting to feel like I was losing it. I mean, I trust her, or I did, but the gut feeling kept nagging me. Something was off. Then one night, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I expected to find her watching TV or maybe out with her friends, but the house was dead silent. I walked into the bedroom and saw her laptop open, logged into some strange account. The screen was filled with these weird virtual environments, like she was in some sort of simulation or maybe a game. I didn't understand it at first. What caught my eye was the chat window, open with a flurry of messages, some really intimate, some downright nasty. It was her talking to someone named Alex, and honestly, reading through the messages, I was stunned. The stuff she was saying, it wasn't just flirtatious. It was raw, explicit. She was describing how good she felt, how she loved the feeling of being wanted in this virtual space, like it was some kind of secret between her and this Alex. I saw her talking about meeting up, about how she hated our sex life and how Alex made her feel alive again. I didn't even need to read the whole thing. Enough was clear. My wife, my Jessica, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with some guy in a virtual universe. And from the tone of the messages, it wasn't just some fling. It looked serious. I was numb. I don't think I even blinked. For a minute after I saw that, my mind raced. How long? How long has she been doing this? Was she going to tell me, or was I just supposed to find out like this? The betrayal hit hard, and I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and confusion. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that she was cheating or that she'd lied about everything. I mean, I knew she was bitchy, manipulative, always finding a way to twist stuff around, but this was next level. I felt like I'd been hit in the chest with a sledgehammer. The worst part, I couldn't even confront her right then. I just closed the laptop, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall, trying to process what I'd just learned. I waited until she came home that evening, my head spinning. She strolled in like nothing was wrong, flipping her hair and giving me that trademark bitchy smirk. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I just looked at her and said, "Who the hell is Alex?" Her face froze for a second, then she rolled her eyes and shot back. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know anyone named Alex." Classic Jessica move, deny, 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 even when the proof is right in front of her. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages I'd found. Her eyes widened, but her expression quickly turned into that sneering, dismissive attitude she always has when she's caught. "Oh, that's just a stupid chat. It's nothing," she said, brushing past me like I was bothering her. I could smell the lie, but honestly I was too pissed to keep calm. I told her I saw everything, how she's been sneaking around doing some virtual trauma therapy with some developer, but it's not just that. It's her lying about it, hiding this from me, pretending everything's fine when clearly it's not. She threw her head back and snapped, "I don't owe you an explanation for every little thing I do. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, you'd relax. It's just some stupid game, not like I'm cheating for real." The way she said it made my blood boil. I knew she was full of shit, but I also knew arguing with her would be like banging my head against a brick wall. So I just looked at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're having virtual sex with this guy in some kind of simulation. Tell me, Jess, how does that even happen? Explain that shit." She crossed her arms and scoffed. "It's not sex, it's just these virtual environments. You wouldn't get it anyway. You're too old-fashioned for this kind of thing." Yeah, right, that's her favorite line. Blame it on me being old-fashioned or paranoid. She loves making me feel like I'm overreacting, like I'm blowing this whole thing out of proportion. But I saw the messages. I saw her talking about how she hated our sex life, how she wanted to get away from the boring routine, how she loved the thrill of this secret digital affair. That's when I realized this wasn't some innocent hobby or some fantasy. It was something more dangerous. And what killed me most? The way she lied so easily. She's always been a bitch with a silver tongue, spinning stories, twisting truths, making herself look innocent. But I could see it in her eyes. She knew she was caught. She kept insisting it was nothing, that I was reading too much into it, that I was just jealous, but I wasn't jealous. I was devastated. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach over and over again. I never thought someone I loved and trusted could betray me like this, especially in such a cold, calculated way. I sat there, staring at her, trying to find the words. I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak. It was like my entire world was crumbling, and I was just standing there, helpless. I didn't want to believe it was true, but deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. Jessica, my wife, the woman I thought I knew, was doing something that cut so deep I didn't even recognize myself anymore. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head. I kept asking myself how I hadn't seen the signs earlier, how I missed the hints she was dropping. The worst part was knowing she'd lied to me, probably even gaslight me into thinking I was crazy for suspecting anything. That's exactly what she'd done before, twist the truth, make me question my own instincts. But now, with that proof staring me in the face, I knew I'd never trust her again. The next day I started planning. I needed to know everything about what she'd been doing. I hacked into her email, her social media, her phone, whatever I could get my hands on. Turns out she'd been hiding this trauma simulation thing for months. It wasn't just some niche hobby, it was like her secret life. She'd spend hours in these programmed environments, in some kind of digital world where she'd pretend to be someone else, somewhere else. And somehow, she'd managed to turn it into these intimate virtual encounters with this developer, Alex. She'd tell him about her frustrations, her fantasies. And it seemed like she'd even gone as far as arranging secret meetings, at least virtual ones, but it was clear she wanted more. I found dozens of messages, screenshots, even recordings of their conversations. Jessica kept lying, claiming she was just venting or playing with the VR settings, but her words painted a different picture. She was craving this escape from her boring, bitchy life, and she'd found a way to cheat on me in the most twisted way possible. It was like the virtual world had become her mistress. I felt sick just thinking about it, how she'd sit there pretending to be innocent while behind the scenes she was planning her next session with him. I kept asking myself, how long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? And what did it mean for us? Were we even married anymore? That afternoon, I confronted her again. I told her I knew everything, showed her all the evidence I'd gathered. Her reaction was infuriating. She started with the same bullshit. It's just a game, you're overreacting. You don't understand. I lost it. I told her she was disgusting, that I couldn't believe she was capable of this betrayal, that she'd lied to me for so long. And when she saw I was serious, she finally cracked a little but still tried to spin it. It's not cheating. It's just virtual. It's harmless. I don't even want that guy. I just like the environment. It's no big deal. I looked at her, feeling this intense mixture of fury and heartbreak. How could she be so callous? How could she treat our marriage like some kind of game, like her virtual trauma therapy was more important than us? I told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I needed time to think, to process what I just found out. I wanted to believe she was still the woman I married, but deep down, I knew her words were just more lies. It hit me then. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her rejecting everything we had built together, about her needing some kind of digital fix to feel alive. That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I'd let it get this far. I was angry, betrayed, and hurt in ways I'd never experienced before. I kept asking myself why I didn't see it coming, why I was so blind to her manipulations. I'd always thought she was bitchy, difficult even, but this was something else entirely. I realized I had to make a decision. Could I forgive her? Could I move past this? Or was this the end? The answer was unclear, but one thing was certain. My sense of trust was shattered, and I wasn't sure if I could ever put it back together. So I told myself, I'd give her a chance to come clean, but if she lied again, that was it. No more excuses. I needed clarity. I had to figure out if I was going to stay or walk away. Either way, I knew I wouldn't be the same person after this. Not anymore. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever gone through. I couldn't sit still. My mind kept spinning. Every time I saw her, Jessica's bitchy smirk or dismissive attitude made me want to scream. She kept insisting she was done with Alex, that it was just a stupid phase and that I should trust her. But I could see through her lies now. Her eyes lacked sincerity and her words felt hollow. I didn't believe her, and honestly, I didn't want to. The betrayal ran too deep. I started putting things in motion. I wanted to know how far this went, if she'd been hiding anything else. I hacked into her phone again, found more messages from her in various secret apps. Turns out she'd been talking to other people too, not just Alex. Some guy named Mark, a girl here and there, all part of her digital escape. She'd created multiple profiles, each one more manipulative than the last. The virtual environments she was playing in weren't just for fun. They were her secret playground for cheating, lying, and escaping her own life. What made it worse was how she kept lying about everything. Every time I confronted her, she'd brush it off, say it was nothing, or that I was just paranoid. The thing is, I wasn't paranoid. I'd caught her in the act. The proof was right there, clear as day. Still, she refused to see it that way. Instead, she'd call me jealous or insecure, accuse me of not understanding her trauma. The irony was, her so-called trauma therapy had turned into her digital affair, like her calibrations with that developer had evolved into some sick emotional affair. One night, I decided to test her. I left my phone open on the kitchen table, intentionally leaving some new messages from her Alex thread visible. I wanted to see if she'd slip up or try to hide it better. Sure enough, the next morning, I saw her sneak into the kitchen, grab her phone, and quickly hide the screen. Her face went pale when she saw me. Watching her, I asked her what she was hiding, and she tried her usual denial. "It's just some stupid game," she said, but I knew better. She was lying again, hiding her secret virtual worlds, her affairs, the emotional attachment she'd built with this guy. The worst part is, I started feeling numb. I'd expected rage, heartbreak, maybe some urge to get revenge, but instead I just felt this crushing emptiness. I'd trusted her completely, and she'd thrown it all away. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly, hide this entire other life from me? It was like I was dating a stranger, someone I didn't recognize anymore. And what hurt most was knowing she didn't care about the damage she'd caused. Jessica had become someone who manipulated her own marriage, her own feelings, just to feed her need for some digital escape. I started thinking about what I should do. I wasn't planning to just walk away blindly, not yet. I wanted to see if she'd come clean on her own, if she'd realize how much she'd destroyed. But part of me knew that trusting her again would be a gamble I wasn't willing to take. Once you cross the line like that, can you ever really go back? I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt, more than I ever thought possible. I kept replaying the good times, trying to hold on to the memories, but the reality kept crushing me. My wife had cheated on me in a way I couldn't even understand fully, and I was left standing in the ruins of what I thought was a solid relationship. That night I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much more I could take. I'd always been a pretty laid-back guy, but it pushed me to my limit. I realized I needed to make some hard decisions soon. Was I going to forgive her? Was I going to fight for us, or just accept that this betrayal was going to define everything? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Something had to give. And deep down, I knew that whatever I chose, my life was never going to be the same again. The days turned into a blur of tense silence and quiet anger. I tried to keep my cool around Jessica, but inside, I felt like I was on the brink of losing it. Every small thing she did or said seemed loaded with lies or hidden motives. She'd still act bitchy, snapping at me for no reason, pushing me away like I was the problem. And honestly, I started to see her true colors, the cold, manipulative edge that was always lurking beneath her bitchy veneer. She'd lie straight to my face, deny everything, then turn around and accuse me of being paranoid or insecure. It was like she was trying to gaslight me into doubting my own judgment, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't keep living in this fog of betrayal and confusion. So I decided to dig deeper, more covertly. I set up some hidden recorders, monitored her online activity more closely, and even checked the server logs of her trauma calibration software. Turns out, her therapy wasn't just some innocent simulation. It was a meticulously crafted virtual environment that Alex had helped her develop. Her trauma sessions had turned into something more, something intimate, secret, and deeply wrong. She said she was working on herself. But instead, she was cheating on me with a guy who was supposed to be just a developer. I found out that she'd been meeting with him in these programmed environments, places where she could pretend to be anyone she wanted, where her trauma was just a story she could manipulate. I saw screenshots of her describing their sessions, how she loved the feeling of being desired, how Alex made her feel alive again. That hurt worse than anything, knowing she'd replaced our marriage with this digital fantasy. She convinced herself it wasn't cheating, that it was just therapy, but I saw through her lies now. It was emotional cheating, pure and simple, and it had gone on for months. One night I finally reached my breaking point. I sat her down and laid everything out. The messages, the recordings, the evidence I'd uncovered. Her face twitched, trying that bitchy smirk, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done, that I couldn't stay in a relationship where I was constantly lied to and disrespected. She tried to spin it, saying I was being too insecure, that I didn't understand her trauma, that it wasn't real cheating. But I told her that emotionally and mentally she'd already checked out of our marriage, that she'd been cheating on me with her virtual developer, and not just once or twice, but multiple times. She got defensive, started crying, saying she loved me, that it was just a stupid mistake, that she'd stop. But I'd heard enough. I told her I needed space, time to think, and that this was the end of the line. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I felt like I was in some surreal nightmare, watching her manipulate her way out of it, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. But I knew the truth now. I knew she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. Walking out that night, I felt hollow, like my soul had been ripped out. I thought about everything, the good times, the bad, the trust we'd built, and I realized that I'd been so blind. Jessica's bitchiness, her manipulations, they all masked a deep emptiness and a craving for something she couldn't find in our marriage. I felt a sting of shame for not seeing it sooner, for not protecting myself from her lies. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I finally understood that I deserved better than a wife who cheated on me, even if it was in some twisted digital universe. Now I'm trying to figure out what the hell comes next. Do I fight for us? Do I cut my losses and run? Honestly, I don't have all the answers yet. But I do know one thing: I'm no longer willing to be her fool. Whatever happens, I've learned a hard lesson about trust, betrayal, and the dangerous ways people can hide their true selves behind a veneer of bitchy indifference and lies. It's going to take me a long time to heal, but I'm starting to see things a little clearer now. And maybe, just maybe, I'll come out of this stronger, without her. In the days that followed, I realized I couldn't keep living in this emotional wreckage. I moved out of the house, not because I wanted to, but because I knew staying would only drag me deeper into her web of lies. The silence between us grew heavy, and every time I saw her bitchy smirk or heard her dismissive tone, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Honestly, I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. I kept thinking about how she'd lied for so long, how she'd disguised her virtual trauma sessions as some innocent therapy, and how she'd replaced real intimacy with a digital fantasy. It made me question everything about our marriage and about Jessica herself. I spent weeks trying to piece myself back together. I cut off contact with her, blocked her from my social media, and focused on rebuilding my life outside that toxic bubble. I realized I'd been too trusting for too long, but I also learned that sometimes people like her don't change. Jessica's manipulative nature was too ingrained, her need for control and drama too strong. I couldn't undo what she'd done, but I could choose to walk away from it, even if that meant facing a future alone. The hardest part now is the emptiness. There's a hole where my trust used to be. I keep asking myself if I should try to salvage what's left, if there's any hope that she might change or realize what she's lost. But deep down, I know that's unlikely. The betrayal cut too deep, and her lies, her complete disregard for what we had, made it impossible for me to see her as the same person again. I've come to terms with the fact that I might be better off alone than in a marriage built on lies and virtual betrayals. Looking back, I see how her bitchy, manipulative attitude was a mask for her own insecurities and emptiness. She used her digital therapy as a shield, a way to escape her problems rather than facing them. And she lied, again and again, trying to make me doubt myself. The thing is, I learned to trust my instincts. That feeling I had, the one that told me something was wrong, was right all along. I just wish I listened sooner. Now I've decided to focus on myself. Therapy, reconnecting with friends, and rebuilding my confidence. I refuse to let her betrayal define me, even if it hurts like hell. And honestly, I feel stronger for coming out the other side. Betrayal like this changes you, but it also teaches you what you're willing to accept and what you're not. I know I'll never forget what Jessica did, but I also know I won't let her control my happiness anymore. In the end, I've learned a lot about myself, my boundaries, my worth, and how dangerous it can be to trust someone who's good at hiding her true self behind a bitchy, manipulative facade. So, if anyone else out there finds themselves in a similar spot, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how much you love someone, because sometimes the betrayal isn't just digital or emotional. It's a mirror showing you that you deserve better. And that's what I'm finally starting to believe now.